The morning of TennoCon 2018, Warframe developer Digital Extremes invited a select number of people to the studio for a special breakfast. They took us inside and they usher us through to their mess area, which is really brightly lit because it actually looks out onto the street. The windows are clear, so people walking past can look inside and see DE staff like having their lunch or whatever. On the far wall are a number of booths, and as I was sitting near one, I was talking to Steve Sinclair, the creative director of Warframe, and I noticed something stuck to the glass on one of the booths. Someone had duct taped a piece of paper to the glass with 2 words on it. I pointed it out to Steve and said, "Have you seen this?" And he said, "Yeah, someone put it up there after we released the sacrifice." A person printed off this thing on an A4 sheet of paper, brought some duct tape with them, and stuck it to the glass where all DE staff could clearly see it. They didn't leave their name or any way to contact them, and they didn't ask for anything. They just left 2 words stuck to that glass. You know what they were? Thank you.
Cold, the air and water flowing hard, the land we call our home. Push to keep the dark from coming. Feel the weight of what we owe.
I cannot think of a time in the entire history of gaming where people have been more cynical about where it's headed. When Bethesda try to break the mold and do something new with Fallout 76, it's met with suspicion from a community worried about the influence of microtransactions and always online for their beloved franchise. When Ubisoft announces The Division 2, the reception is equal parts excitement and mistrust, as people look to the cautionary tale of Destiny 2 and the goodwill squandered on a sequel that gutted the best parts of the franchise. When Activision announced their plans for Call of Duty Black Ops 4, the community immediately revolts, taking exception with gameplay choices, no single-player campaign, and the inclusion of Battle Royale, which seems like more of the same rather than genuine innovation. Anthem has never had the chance to breathe, no matter how stunning its gameplay looks, as BioWare fans bemoan its departure from what made the studio great, and the broader gaming community distrusts EA's approach to monetization. I could go on and on, listing every major upcoming release from every major publisher, detailing why so many people are worried about the decisions that their favorite studios are making about their favorite games, and what impact those decisions will have on the future of the franchises that they love. But you know who's not worried about the future of their game? These guys. When Warframe announced its Fortuna, Railjack, and New War updates, there wasn't any cynicism or worry or backlash. There weren't any clickbait hot takes and Reddit circle jerks talking about how Digital Extremes blew it and how the community is rising up in violent revolt demanding X, Y, and Z. Instead, the top 5 posts in the /rgames subreddit were Warframe related, each of them praising individual announcements and remarking what a spectacular job DE have done. And don't even get me started on the Warframe subreddit or excitement on Twitter. YouTuber Critical wrote, "I can't suck Warframe's asshole hard enough. More content than a majority of AAA shit and such a passionate community and devs. So goddamn wholesome." DE replied, "That's one way to put it." The excitement was wholly justified. At TennoCon, DE unveiled 3 major updates for the game. The first is Fortuna, a new open-world landscape set on Venus. For those that don't play Warframe, this is the second open-world area for the game, and where the first, the plains of Eidolon, seemed to be a bit of a prototype, DE are going much bigger this time around. The map is roughly 4 or 5 times bigger than the plains of Eidolon, but more than that, it just seems infinitely more detailed and layered and interesting. Plains was essentially just that, big, empty, grassy plains, but Fortuna is full of all this detail and verticality and things to go into and explore. It reminded me far more of Destiny's open world maps, which have always been truly fantastic. But hang on, because if the map is this big, then we're going to need a means of transportation. Well, don't worry, DE have got you covered on that front as well. Now, I know the inclusion of a hoverboard might seem like a small, cheap gimmick, but it's actually wholly consistent with Warframe's approach to player movement. Here's what Steve Sinclair had to say about it when I interviewed him in Space Mom's car.
And the K-Drive hoverboarding is absolutely feels a very different way. I'm always proud of the mobility things that we try in Warframe, and this one is really feels at home.
Everyone lost their shit. It's like Marty McFly, SSX,
Yeah,
Tony Hawk, Pro
yeah,
Skater in the future with ninjas. Like, come on now. What else do you want? Like, come on.
And yes, don't worry, the rest of that video is coming very soon. Stay tuned. So, Fortuna was really impressive, but as the demo ended and the audience cheered, I knew that there was more to come. I had spoken to the team earlier in the week and they had told me that what we were about to see was an absolute game changer. And while Fortuna looked like an evolution of the way DE handles open worlds, it wasn't the knockout punch I was expecting. But then...
Welcome aboard, operator.
Operators.
This is a Sigma Series Railjack, a multi-crew interceptor. Engineering, tactical, weapon systems all await your command.
I wish I could describe what it was like being in the crowd watching this demo. I was at E3 this year and I attended pretty much every event, every showcase. At no point did any room at E3 come close to matching the energy and excitement present during this moment of the TennoCon reveal. People were losing their minds and I was totally there with them. Just the way your ship broke through the clouds, the visual design, the cooperative aspect to it, the incorporation of the Archwing, the boarding of enemy troops, the storming of this capital ship, the faster than light management of ship energy, and the final blow to end it all. It just felt like such a nerd fantasy come to life. Like the bridge command of Star Trek and the cannon dogfights of Star Wars and the camaraderie of Firefly and the ship-to-ship action of Pirates of the Caribbean. It was just so fantastic. But while I was watching this, there was just one word in my mind the entire time, and that word was ambition. We all love what's familiar, but we need these injections of big new things from time to time. We just do. And hey guys, no single player campaign this year is an ambition. No loot boxes, we promise, is an ambition. I read recently an article quoting the former CEO of PlayStation who said that AAA games felt too big to fail now, and the manpower and investment required to produce them results in really risk-averse products. Stuff that's safe, stuff that's without ambition. When I was at this TennoCon breakfast, I noticed I was going to be sitting next to Steve Sinclair, but he was running late because apparently he fell asleep in his office. Now, it was a stressful week, I don't blame the guy. Anyway, when he does arrive and sits down next to me, the first thing he says to me is, "Hey, I saw your boat documentary." The background for those that don't know is that my Destiny Warmind review, I started that by comparing Destiny and Bungie to the Yarra Viking, the world's largest ever ship. So big that it was actually sunk and resurrected because it was too big to fail. Steve spoke to me about his thoughts on what that metaphor meant to the games industry as a whole. And to be clear, Steve wasn't talking about Bungie here, he was talking about broader games development, the entire industry. He told me that from where he sits, he sees everyone, other studios, etc. Most of them are trying to become the Yarra Viking. Everyone is trying to become too big to fail and hire more people and build bigger offices, bigger boats, because it feels like there's safety and security in that. But he says these massive enterprises produce factory assembly lines, conveyor belts, where the art of game design is far more like chemistry, with tiny amounts of chemicals poured back and forth between beakers until you reach the perfect concoction. He told me a story about a guy that came to work at DE who used to work at a huge AAA studio, one of the biggest in the world, and Steve asked him to change the design of something that this person had worked on for a long time. Now, this person really didn't like being asked to do this because they felt like they delivered on the design that was put to them. They even sent Steve a copy of the Google Doc highlighting that this was what was agreed in the past and that this person had done their job. And Steve's reply really stuck with me. He told this guy, "Dude, we're not making a Google Doc here, we're making a video game." DE is around 250 people working on Warframe. They service the 4th most played game on Steam and they do it using a free-to-play economy. The fact that a studio this small can produce something this big and have the courage to take massive risks like Fortuna and Railjack is only possible because they have woven ambition into the core of their ethos and ruthlessly pursue this goal. 15 days before Railjack was shown, it was going to be cut from the demo because it just wasn't ready. But the team refused to let this happen. They wanted to showcase that ambition to the world and to the broader gaming community, and I think the results speak for themselves. But here's another thing that I think is crucial in this whole equation. When the Plains of Eidolon launched last year, it was a buggy mess. It was incomplete from both a technical and a design perspective, but the community had DE's back in a way that very few game communities do. For the record, I expect Fortuna and Railjack will probably launch in a similar way, somewhat broken and unfinished. But I also expect the community to again have DE's back because they'll be able to see how much work and ambition these 250 people are putting into this thing, and they'll cut them the slack they deserve. I think trying big things is only possible when you have the community standing behind you and under you, ready to catch you if you fall, and DE are lucky enough to have that. In 2018, how many studios have this sort of luxury? With so many big things to discuss, it's easy to gloss over the smaller stories and moments of success, but there were plenty of those too. There's the story of the DC Comics artist who DE reached out to because they love his work and he designed a concept for an incredible looking Nick skin. There's the announcement that DE are working on 2 new Warframes right now, adding to their existing roster of 35. There was the fact that the voice actor for Ballas was there in the flesh with an important message for all Warframe fans.
Look, brother, tense.
I spent a lot of time talking with 2 TennoCon artists who are community members that create stunning in-game items that players can purchase, and when they do, these artists actually get a cut of that. They get paid on that. One guy has been able to quit his job and do this full time because his work is so loved by the community. And DE go to great lengths to share their design tools with these creators, so it's to encourage their creativity. Where every other studio closes ranks and keeps its tools closely guarded secrets, DE literally throws the doors open to their knowledge and tech and says, please, have at it. Look, YouTube is all about the mighty hot take, and I don't want to let you guys down, so here's my hot take. If you aren't paying attention to Warframe at this point, then you aren't paying attention to gaming and where it's going. There are too many best-in-class examples happening all at once within this game for you to be looking away from it. And even if it's not to your personal taste, witnessing the journey that this game has taken and is yet to take is like watching the way that StarCraft defined the early stages of esports, or how Halo 2's release created a dip in the stock exchange because everyone took the day off work, or how World of Warcraft completely dominated PC gaming for 5 years, and the rise of MOBAs and how they defined contemporary esports, and the staggering popularity of Rockstar games, or how Fortnite has smashed every known gaming metric to date and has sort of created this insane fusion of gaming personalities and global superstars. Warframe is another one of those stories playing out in real time right now, and like all of those other games, it has at its core an X factor that no one else is pulling off right now, and that makes it really special. This is a game that Total Biscuit, rest his soul, knew was great before any other big YouTuber was giving it the light of day. It's a game that is built on microtransactions, but it has managed to melt Jim Sterling's heart. Jim fucking Sterling of all people. It's a game that Danny O'Dwyer, one of the most talented people on YouTube, saw fit to include as part of his no-clip documentary series. It's a game that attracts some of the best talent on Twitch, people like Athalion and Professor Broman and just dozens of others that just all have come to this game because they can see how great it is. You don't get this cross-section of support from these types of people unless you're doing something extraordinary, and DE are doing it with Warframe. Fortuna, Railjack, and the New War are just the newest upcoming chapters in a manual to success that's already dozens of chapters deep, and my biggest hope is that every publisher and every developer reads this manual because they could all learn something pretty important from the chemistry going on over at Digital Extremes.
Good night.
That's it.
Thank you so much for coming. We love you. We love you so much.
Did I miss?
We owe you everything.